Charlie Munger was one of the greatest investors in modern history. In a shareholder meeting late in his life, he made a claim that sounds almost too simple. Getting to your first $100,000 is the hard part. After that, everything moves faster. So, ask the obvious question. Is $100,000 just a clean, memorable number? Or does something actually change once you cross it? Here's what should surprise you. Your first $100,000 can take years. Your second $100,000 can arrive meaningfully faster. Same market, same average return. So what changed? That's the question this video actually answers. Today, we're walking through the real numbers behind this. Why your first stretch depends almost entirely on you and not the market. The thinking pattern that quietly convinces people to slow down right when every dollar matters most. And 3 levers that shorten this stage starting now. One quick note, $100,000 isn't a magic switch. It's a milestone, the point where your money finally starts pulling its own weight. Exactly where that point sits for you depends on your own numbers, and we'll find that for you later in this video. Munger's instinct was right. The first stretch is the hardest part of the climb. Once you see why, you won't look at your bank account the same way again. Section 1. Why the first $100,000 is so hard and why it gets faster afterward. This is where the real proof lives. We're going to look at why your money is worth more once there's more of it, why that timeline actually speeds up the longer you stay invested, and who's really responsible for building that first $100,000. Let's start with the simplest piece. Imagine you invest $100. By the end of the year, the market gives you a 10% return. That sounds decent on paper. In real dollars, that's $10. $10 is not nothing, but you could probably earn that same $10 in under an hour doing almost any ordinary job. So ask yourself the honest question. If your labor can out-earn your investment that easily, is investing even worth it yet? Not really. Not at that size. Now picture the exact same setup, except this time you invest $100,000. Same market, same 10% return. This time, that return is $10,000. Nothing about the percentage changed. What changed was the size of the pile that return was acting on. This was never about finding a better return. It's about how much money that return has to work with. Picture this at a more conservative 7% return, the number we'll use for the rest of this video. $10,000 invested earns you about $700 a year. $50,000 earns about $3,500 a year. $100,000 earns about $7,000 a year. $500,000 earns about $35,000 a year. $1 million earns about $70,000 a year. Same 7% every single time. These are rough average numbers, not a promise about what the market will actually do in any one year. This is simply what happens when a percentage return scales with a larger principal. We'll call it capital scaling for this video. It just means the same percentage return becomes worth more in real dollars as the pile of money receiving that return gets bigger. That's why size matters on its own. Now let's add time to it. Picture a snowball rolling down a hill. At the top, it's small, and every extra layer of snow it picks up comes from you pushing it. But as it rolls, it grows, and a bigger snowball starts picking up more snow on its own, with less pushing needed from you. That's what happens once time gets added to the size we just talked about. Say you save $10,000 a year, and your investments average that same 7% return. Using just those 2 numbers, this is how long each stretch of $100,000 actually takes. The first $100,000 takes about 7.8 years. The second $100,000, taking you to $200,000 total, takes about 5 years. The third takes about 3.8 years. The fourth takes about 3 years. The fifth, getting you to $500,000 total, takes about 2.5 years. Each stretch is smaller than the one before it, even though you're contributing the exact same $10,000 a year the whole time. Once there's real money already invested, it starts pulling its own weight alongside your contribution, and every year that passes, it pulls a little more. Now, this is where most people get the math instinctively wrong. If your first $100,000 took 7.8 years, it seems reasonable to assume $1 million, 10 times as much, would take 10 times as long. About 78 years. It doesn't. Under this same model, $1 million actually arrives in about 30.7 years. That first $100,000, the slowest, hardest stretch of the entire climb, makes up only 10% of your final $1 million. But it eats up over 25% of the entire time it took to get there. And once you're sitting on $1 million, the next $100,000, taking you to $1,100,000, arrives in about 15 months. Same size jump. Wildly different weight. So, if your money is doing that much of the work eventually, who's actually building that first $100,000 in the beginning? Because there's a mistake almost everyone makes once they hear about compounding. They assume investment growth will carry them to their first $100,000 fairly quickly. It won't. Not yet. And to make the point harder to dismiss, let's actually give the market a stronger return than the 7% we've been using. Say you save $10,000 a year for 7 years and earn 10% annually. You end up with around $104,000, but you personally contributed $70,000 of it. Investment growth added only about $34,000. So, even at 10%, roughly 2/3 of your first $100,000 still came from you. That's the part people miss. Your first $100,000 is still mostly built from your paycheck, not the market's performance. Think of it as two different phases. Right now, your income creates a surplus. That surplus becomes a contribution, and that contribution becomes your wealth almost entirely on its own. Later, your contribution combines with a growing pile of existing capital, and the investment returns themselves start adding real weight to the total. Right now, your paycheck is the engine. Later, your portfolio becomes a second one running alongside it. This isn't a case against investing. It's proof that investing is doing exactly what it's supposed to do. It just can't do much yet with a small amount of money to work with. So, what does that actually mean for you right now? The fastest way to reach your first $100,000 isn't finding a better investment. It's earning more, spending less, and doing it on purpose because right now, that's almost the entire engine. And that's exactly where most people get it backwards. Section 2. Why this changes how you should treat money before $100,000. This is the part where the math becomes personal. Right now, you're saving thousands of dollars and the market is only adding a few hundred back. $1 million still feels impossibly far away, and your brain, quite reasonably, starts asking, what's even the point? This can be a point where motivation weakens, and there are 4 specific reasons why. The first is called present bias. A night out, a new outfit, an upgraded phone. All of that feels real and immediate. Investing $10,000 a year toward a number you can't see or touch yet feels abstract by comparison. Immediate rewards can feel disproportionately compelling compared with invisible progress, even when that progress matters more. A night out might cost $60 and give you a memory you'll talk about for a week. Investing that same $60 instead gives you back about $4 at the end of the year. No wonder the night out wins in the moment. It's simply the wrong comparison to be making. The second we can call futility spending. The thinking goes something like this. Houses feel unaffordable. Retirement feels decades away. $100,000 feels impossible anyway, so why not just enjoy an extra $300 right now? The danger here is that feeling behind financially can make the exact spending that keeps you behind feel more tempting. Picture scrolling past a friend's vacation photos the same night you skipped a dinner, out to save money. It's easy to think, what's the point of saving $400 if a house still feels years away anyway? That single thought is often enough to talk you into spending the $400 you were trying to protect. The third is lifestyle inflation. Your income goes up, and without you noticing, your spending quietly rises right along with it. A $10,000 raise in your take-home pay does nothing for your wealth if your lifestyle also grows by $10,000 a year. Say your rent moves from $1,200 to $1,800 the same month your raise lands. The extra money never even reaches your investment account. It's gone before it arrives. The fourth is social comparison. Some spending doesn't even make life better. It just makes you look successful to other people. A newer car, trendier clothes, a bigger apartment. None of that builds your first $100,000. It just spends the money that would have. A $400 handbag or a 75-inch television might earn a compliment at dinner. But nobody at that dinner is asking about your investment account, and the handbag was never going to grow it for you either. Keep that pattern in mind. It matters again once we look at how ordinary people actually end up wealthy. Let's make this concrete with real numbers. Say you're spending an extra $300 a month that you don't truly need, whatever the specific habit is for you. If that same $300 a month were invested instead at a 7% return, over 10 years, it would grow to around $52,000. To be clear, this isn't a lecture about never spending $300, and cutting every small joy out of your life was never the point. Life still has to be lived, and one splurge doesn't ruin a retirement. The real skill is noticing which spending is recurring and optional. During this exact stage, when your own contributions matter most and each early dollar has the longest runway left to compound, those recurring spending decisions quietly decide how much capital you'll actually have available to grow. Now, there are 3 specific levers we can pull to make reaching our first $100,000 realistic and fast. Lever 1. Play offense. There's a limit to how low you can cut expenses. Even the most frugal person can't cut spending below 0. So, the fastest lever left is increasing what comes in. This is your first lever, offense. Offense simply means growing your earning power and the amount of money you're able to put toward building wealth in the first place. Let's go back to our 7% model and see what happens when you change just one number, how much you contribute each year. At $5,000 a year, your first $100,000 takes about 13 years. At $10,000 a year, it takes about 7.8 years. At $15,000 a year, it takes about 5.7 years. At $20,000 a year, it takes about 4.4 years. At $25,000 a year, it takes about 3.6 years. Same 7% return the entire time. The only thing that changed was how much you were feeding into it. That's a bigger, faster lever than most people realize, often bigger than chasing a slightly higher investment return. Offense breaks down into 3 practical routes. The first is increasing what you earn per hour of work through new skills, certifications, or simply negotiating your current pay. A single successful negotiation that adds $5,000 to your salary is worth more, dollar for dollar, than years spent chasing a slightly better investment return. And unlike the market, a raise is something you can actually go out and get, which makes it one of the most direct ways to shorten your own climb to $100,000. The second is increasing your number of paid opportunities through freelance work, a side project, or extra hours where it makes sense. Say that work brings in an extra $400 a month after taxes and expenses, and you invest all of it on top of what you're already contributing. That takes your yearly contribution from $10,000 to about $14,800, which cuts your timeline to your first $100,000 from 7.8 years down to about 5.7 years. That's over 2 years saved from one side income stream alone. The third is building ownership through a small business or an income-producing asset that pays you beyond your regular job. This could be as simple as renting out a spare room, running a small online store on the side, or offering a skill you already have as a consultant. This route takes longer to set up, but once it's running, every dollar it produces adds to your climb toward $100,000. Whichever of these 3 routes you choose, they all draw from the same resource, your time. Your time is really only ever doing one of 3 things: building your future earning ability, earning money directly, or spending money. During this early stage, time spent on the first 2 often creates more movement than anything else you could be doing. One honest caveat here: not everyone has equal ability to raise their income overnight. Your industry, location, and circumstances all play a role. But offense remains one of the clearest levers available, and it's worth actively pulling rather than waiting on. But offense only matters if what it earns actually stays with you, which brings us to your second lever. Lever 2, play defense. Offense creates income. Defense decides how much of it survives and how much of it actually goes toward your first $100,000 instead of quietly disappearing somewhere else. This part is backed up by research, not just intuition. The book The Millionaire Next Door studied everyday millionaires directly and found something surprising. High income alone didn't create most of their wealth. Many of them earned solid but unremarkable salaries. What they had in common wasn't a special investment secret, it was that their spending never expanded to match every dollar they earned. That's what defense actually looks like in practice. Defense doesn't mean deprivation, and it doesn't mean buying the cheapest version of everything. Defense means simply refusing to let your spending automatically rise every single time your income does. Put that to the test right now. Do you actually know approximately what you spent last year eating out? On your car, on clothes, on subscriptions, on travel? If you can't answer those honestly, that's useful information on its own because you can't deliberately direct money you don't even know you're spending. If eating out alone quietly adds up to $4,000 a year, that's not a rounding error. A year's contribution toward your first $100,000, disappearing without you ever actually deciding it should. So, don't let it happen by accident. Whenever your income rises, decide on purpose what percentage upgrades your life right now and what percentage goes straight into your contributions. Don't let the decision get made for you by default. And when you're looking for where to cut, start big, not small. Focus your attention on the big recurring categories first: housing, vehicles, debt payments, habitual spending you've stopped noticing. A $5 coffee bought occasionally is not the same problem as a $500 recurring lifestyle increase. Fix the large leaks before you ever worry about the small ones. The real number to track here isn't your salary, it's your surplus, whatever is actually left over to build wealth with. That's the number defense protects, and it's the number that actually decides how fast you reach $100,000. Offense builds the money, defense protects it. Your third and final lever is making sure every dollar you've kept is actually working as hard as it can. Lever 3, make your dollars more efficient. You've earned it through offense. You've kept it through defense. The last question is, are you actually using it well? Call this efficiency. It just means getting the most real financial value out of every dollar you've already earned and kept instead of quietly leaving some of it on the table. First, if your employer offers to match part of what you put into a retirement account, that's part of your pay going unused if you skip it, money that could have gone straight toward your first $100,000. If your essential expenses are covered, generally aim to contribute at least enough to capture the full match and check your plan's vesting rules, since some employer matches take time before they're fully yours. Next, understand your account options. In plain terms, a traditional retirement account like a traditional 401k or IRA usually lowers your taxes today, and you pay taxes later when you withdraw the money in retirement. A Roth account works the opposite way. You pay taxes on the money now, but withdrawals later in retirement are generally tax-free. Your 401k specifically can also come with that employer match we just talked about. As of 2026, the IRS allows up to $24,500 a year into a 401k and up to $7,500 combined across traditional and Roth IRAs. These numbers do shift most years, so always check the current limit before planning around it. Either way, the earlier you start using these accounts, the more of your first $100,000 ends up shielded from tax you didn't need to pay. Then look at your cash sitting in the bank. As of August 2026, the national average savings account pays around 0.6%, while a leading high-yield account pays around 4%, roughly 6 times more on the exact same money just sitting there. How much that actually adds up to depends on how much cash you're holding and for how long, but it's still money that could otherwise be adding to your first $100,000 instead of sitting idle. Don't ignore fees either. A small yearly fee on an investment might look tiny, but the exact same compounding that grows your money can just as easily work against you. Quietly, year after year. A 1% fee on $100,000 is $1,000 taken every single year, whether the market goes up or down, and that same fee grows right along with your account. And this is the real line to draw with debt. High-interest debt, especially credit card debt, is usually an easy call. Paying it down gives you a guaranteed saving on the interest, while market returns are never guaranteed. Credit cards commonly charge more than 20%, which makes this one of the clearest wins available to you. Every dollar of unnecessary interest is a dollar that could have gone straight toward your first $100,000 instead. Put simply, this is a useful general framework, not a universal rule. Keep some cash for emergencies, capture your full employer match, clear away expensive debt, use your tax-advantaged accounts, invest what's left for the long run, and keep your short-term cash earning a fair return. Not everyone needs every single piece, and your own situation may shift this order around. But this gives every dollar you've built through offense and protected through defense a clear starting point for actually working toward your first $100,000. So let's return to where we started. Charlie Munger wasn't exaggerating when he said the first $100,000 is the hardest part. He was describing something real, and now you can see exactly why. In the beginning, you work for your money almost entirely alone. In the middle stretch, your money starts working right alongside you. And eventually, at real scale, your money can produce more in a single year than you contribute yourself. That's not a magic switch flipping at exactly $100,000. It's an engine slowly being built, one contribution at a time, until it can finally start pulling its own weight. And you now have 3 ways to build that engine faster. Offense, to increase what comes in. Defense, to protect what you keep. Efficiency, to make sure every dollar you've kept is actually working as hard as it possibly can. If your first $100,000 still feels painfully slow, that isn't proof that this doesn't work. That's consistent with being in the one stage where your own contributions are still doing most of the work, the stage where the engine is still being built. Stay in it. Everything really does move differently once it's running.